How's it going, everyone? Roslyn here. A while back, Sega asked me if I'd like to showcase the upcoming, now recently released in the West, Persona 5 The Phantom X to you guys, and of course I said yes. So today I'm going to be doing just that, going over everything you need to know about P5X before jumping in. Before that though, full disclosure, but this video is sponsored by Sega. Huge thanks to them for sponsoring today's video. If you're interested in checking out the game for yourself after watching the video, be sure to use the link in the video description below. But because of this, I will be withholding my thoughts and opinions on the title. Instead, I will simply be introducing the game to you and what you can expect from it. As such, I've decided to structure the video in the following way. First, I'll give a brief overview of the game, followed by what to expect from story progression, spoiler-free of course. I'll then touch upon daily life activities, character growth, and finally combat. Due to the sheer amount of things to cover, I won't be able to go in depth on absolutely everything, but the information I provide should be more than sufficient. Anyways, with that out the way, let's get into it. Persona 5 The Phantom X is a game that will feel very familiar to fans of the series, while simultaneously feeling different. At its core, this is a Persona 5 title. You control a new main character, Wonder, alongside his sidekick Lufil, and a whole new cast of characters designed by series artist Soejima Shigenori. You go about the usual Persona-style daily life sim elements, explore mementos, and of course raid the palaces of bad guys in search of their treasure in order to change their hearts. Combat is turn-based with a heavy emphasis on hitting enemy weaknesses and using baton pass to down them for all-out attacks. And much like with Joker from the original game, Wonder can collect and use multiple persona, as well as fuse them into new persona in the Velvet Room. All the familiar P5 music and sounds that you've come to know do make a return, alongside a host of completely new music, much of which comes in the form of new battle themes. In this sense, playing P5X feels like you're playing more Persona 5. It's familiar, but it's also different. And the reason for that is because Persona 5 The Phantom X is not just a new Persona game, it's also a CN-developed free-to-play mobile game. If you've played any other popular CN-developed mobile title, then you know what this means. Expect daily login bonuses, a battle pass, patch cycles with events, a stamina system, an in-game store, and of course, gacha mechanics. It's all there. And the influence of this permeates through the entire game, but we'll touch on that more in the later sections of the video. I titled this section Story Progression, but in reality I'm going to be going over the gameplay loop of P5X, which also happens to include story progression. But in a nutshell, P5X progresses very similarly to P5 and P5R. Through the story, you'll be introduced to a target whose heart you'll ultimately decide needs to be changed. You'll then gather info on this target before diving into the metaverse to locate their palace, after which you'll infiltrate their palace in search of their treasure in order to change their heart. Rinse and repeat. As I said, it pretty much plays out the same way it did in Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, even down to characters with a connection to the target villain of an arc joining you as a new Phantom Thief. That being said, there are some pretty significant changes. Because P5X is a mobile game, its story can't really be set up and progress exactly like a normal Persona title. What I mean by that is the story doesn't start on a day in say April, and then go through the days, weeks, and months with its eventual conclusion at the end of the school year. You do still progress through days though, it's just that instead of specific dates, you have yesterday, today, and tomorrow. There are also no deadlines for completing palaces, and you can pretty much enter and leave the metaverse whenever you want. This is necessary because in addition to palaces, you'll also be able to explore mementos, and mementos is where you'll be spending your daily stamina, but more on that later. Anyways, just because you can enter and leave the metaverse whenever you want doesn't mean that time management is completely gone. Each day does still have time slots, and you do still advance through these time slots in order to finish a day and move on to the next. But to go more in depth on that, we need to move on to daily life activities. So much of what you can do for daily activities in P5 and P5R, you can do in P5X as well, with some notable changes of course. Mornings through to the afternoon are still taken up by school life, and you still get cutscenes of the main character attending classes, with the occasional question being thrown your way to answer. Answering questions then provides you with points towards ranking up your social stats, with correct answers providing additional points. Once school is over, you can spend your free time doing many of the same activities available in the original games. You can work towards leveling social stats even more by studying in the library or at a diner, you can take on part-time work to level social stats and earn more cash, and activities such as the public bath, the movie theater, the gym, among others are still available. Additionally, you can spend time with your social links. Yes, social links are still present in P5X, and ranking them up will provide benefits to the player just like in P5 and P5R. Social links are now called accomplices instead of confidants, and hanging out with them will increase their synergy with you, synergy being the metric that determines when an accomplice will rank up. So other than confidants now being called accomplices, what are the notable changes to daily life activities in P5X? Well, the biggest change is the addition of a third time slot each day. You now have after school, evening, and night. In addition to this, each time slot now allows for 2 activities before advancing to the next. This means you could, say, study in the library and also hang out with the new Velvet Room attendant after school before time advances to the evening. But having all of this extra time for activities doesn't mean that you can just power level your social stats or accomplice synergy. This is because all of these activities use a new resource called Activity Points, or AP for short. AP in P5X is another resource just like stamina that replenishes over time. You get 5 AP per real life day and can store up to a maximum of 20 AP. Whenever you want to do a task or activity that would use up a time slot, you need to spend AP in order to do so. So while you may have more total free time per day, the number of activities that you can do is still limited. One last change that I predict many fans of the series will welcome has to do with transparency. Specifically, the amount of points needed to level up your social stats and accomplices is now no longer hidden from the player. When getting points towards either of these activities, you not only see how much was gained, but how much more is needed for the next rank. Alright, let's talk about character growth, specifically for combat purposes, as we already touched upon social stats in the previous section. To begin, we should start with the process of getting more party members, for which there are 3 methods. First, some party members will join you as part of the main story. Simply progress your way through the game's main story, and you'll get a copy of the story-relevant characters. The second method is via the gacha system. As you play through P5X, or if you choose to make in-game purchases, you'll get currency that can be used to pull characters via the game's gacha mechanics. And finally, the third method is through in-game events. There are in-game events that give you tasks to complete, and upon completion, you are awarded a copy of a given character depending on the event. Just like with other CM mobile games, getting extra copies of characters allows you to increase a character's strength. In P5X, this is called awareness. Pull a copy of On from P5 for example, and she'll be at awareness 0. If you get another copy of her, then you can upgrade her to awareness 1, increasing how strong of a character she is. Once you've acquired party members, you'll then need to level them up, but this is done differently than in the mainline Persona titles. While you do occasionally get some experience points from battle, almost all character experience is gained by using items acquired in-game. Once a character has reached a sort of soft level cap, you will then need to use another in-game resource to allow them to continue leveling up more. This happens at level milestones such as level 20, 30, 40, and so on. Leveling up characters unlocks more skills for those characters and allows you to also level up their skills. To continue using On as an example, her skill Crimson Rose starts at level 1. By using yet another in-game resource, you can level that skill up, increasing various aspects of it such as how much damage it deals. In addition to character and skill levels, you also make characters stronger by getting them weapons. Weapons are character specific and are acquired and leveled up in much the same way as characters themselves. Some weapons come from events, others come from in-game resources, and the bulk of them will be coming from the game's weapon gacha system. A resource can then be used to level up a weapon, with another resource being used to allow a weapon to exceed the same level milestones that characters have. And getting multiple copies of the same weapon can let you increase the bonus effects that weapons have on them. The final aspect of character growth comes in the form of revelation cards. These are basically equipment for characters that provide bonuses if you have multiple pieces of a given set. Think artifacts or relics from other popular CN mobile games. Revelation cards are basically P5X's version of those. Now, everything I've talked about with regards to character growth has been about your party members, and most of it also pertains to the MC, Wonder. But there are a couple of key differences for Wonder himself. The first is his level. Unlike other characters, Wonder's level increases by doing activities, filling out the battle pass, spending stamina, progressing the main story, etc. Another key difference is that, like MCs in mainline Persona titles, Wonder doesn't have just one persona and has the ability to equip more than one. You can acquire new persona in various ways. First, there is a small chance to get one after combat. You can spend stamina to get guaranteed copies of specific persona. You get them via the gacha system whenever you pull characters on the character banners. Some come from in-game events, and of course you can fuse new ones in the Velvet Room. When fusing in the Velvet Room though, be warned that even though you can register persona to the compendium like you can in other Persona titles, you can't pull persona out of the compendium in P5X. So if you fuse away 2 persona to make a new one, you'll need to acquire those persona again if you want to use them or fuse them into something else. You'll be needing to acquire multiples of the same persona anyways, not just for fusion, but also because you need to do so as part of leveling up persona. Persona, much like with characters and weapons, are leveled up by using in-game resources, and upon hitting certain level milestones will need extra copies of themselves to level up further. Another use for extra copies of Persona though is through tech skill enlightenment. Basically, you sacrifice a persona in order to teach a different persona one of the sacrificed persona skills at random. One last difference between Wonder and other characters with regards to character growth is that Wonder has a sort of skill tree. By progressing the game and registering persona to the compendium, you get schema points, and these can be used on permanent power boosts to Wonder. This is actually how Wonder increases the skill levels of his persona, rather than leveling them up like other characters. Finally, I've mentioned the need for in-game resources in order to level up characters, weapons, and skills. You'll get some of these resources by simply playing through the game, but the amount you get won't be enough after a while. Whenever you need more of a given resource, you'll want to head to Mementos, specifically to the Realm of Repression. It's here that you can spend your daily stamina in order to get more materials for character advancement, target farm specific persona for Wonder, or farm for revelation cards. Anyways, that was a long section, and should just about cover everything for character growth. Now onto combat. Persona 5X's combat is very similar to P5R's combat, but again with a few key differences. Hitting enemy weaknesses in order to down them, and then baton passing to another character to continue the chain is still core to the system. And by downing all enemies, you are still able to perform all-out attacks. But there are changes. For starters, there are enemies that now have what are called down shields. These are shields that prevent an enemy from being downed even when struck with their elemental weakness. To remove these shields, you first need to hit that enemy's weakness, which will remove a shield counter, and then once all counters are gone, you can finally hit the enemy once more to finally down them. Persona 5 Royal's Showtime attacks have now also been replaced with highlight skills. As battle progresses, you'll be charging up a new highlight gauge, and once fully charged, you may have a character in your party use their highlight skill. This can be a damaging single target attack, an AoE attack, and there are even some characters that have party-wide heals. Once a character uses their highlight, they can't use it again for 4 turns, even if you charge the highlight gauge back up again. Another change comes in the form of the Team Navigator. Navigators now occupy a 5th party member slot, though they still aren't able to directly attack like other party members. Instead, after a few turns in battle, your Navigator becomes available to use their persona skills. You can then select what skill you want to use, after which that skill will go on cooldown, basically a set number of turns before it can be used again. Another change that veterans of the series will especially notice has to do with balancing. Enemies and your party members have much more HP than in traditional Persona titles. The result here is that even when you are hitting enemy weaknesses and using all-out attacks, battles rarely last more than 2 turns like is normal in mainline Persona games. This increase in HP values lends itself to another aspect of CM mobile games making an appearance, and that has to do with character kits. You see, characters no longer have a persona that learns Agi, Dia, Tarukaja, the skills you've come to expect. In fact, all characters except for Wonder only have a handful of active and passive skills, but these skills are a lot more involved. Using On as an example again, she has a passive skill where she gains stacks of passion whenever she deals fire damage to enemies, and then at 4 stacks of passion, she consumes those stacks and then gains a buff, La Vie en Rose, for 1 turn. While under the effects of this La Vie en Rose, her skills will gain additional effects. For example, her base skill Crimson Rose normally deals AoE fire damage to enemies and increases her attack for 2 turns. But if used while La Vie en Rose is active, Crimson Rose will additionally reduce all enemies' attack as well. If you've then acquired multiple copies of On through the gacha system, her La Vie en Rose buff will become even stronger, gaining the ability to buff all allies and even allow for additional instances of damage. In this way, characters in Persona 5X end up having rotations that are more complex than just maintain X debuff or buff or hit Y weakness. These new mobile game influenced kits that characters have also bleeds over into team building. In mainline Persona titles, you generally want a diverse party that is able to hit multiple different weaknesses in addition to buffs, debuffs, and healing. In P5X though, you also want to consider each character's kit. Continuing with On, she has the ability to deal technical damage when hitting an enemy afflicted with a status ailment. However, if that status happens to be Burn, then On will deal an additional 30% more damage with her attack. Because of this, she benefits from there being someone else in the party who can help apply Burn to enemies. And having another fire user also accelerates how quickly she gains passion stacks, which means quicker La Vie en Rose, which then means more damage and utility. This is promoted even further by the addition of specific character elements. Each character is assigned an element, and having multiple characters of the same element in the party will provide damage increases for the given element, with increases being provided for having 2 characters of the same element, or even 3 characters of the same element in the party at once. It's because of all of this that in addition to being able to target enemy weaknesses, you also need to consider any synergies that your characters have when deciding who to put on your team. But that'll do it for this rather lengthy look at everything you need to know about Persona 5 The Phantom X. Again, if you'd like to check out the game for yourself and support the channel at the same time, you can use my link in the video description below. And of course, if you found this video helpful and informative, please be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Also, if you have any questions about this video, Persona 5X, or any other game that I cover, feel free to hit me up over on Twitch at twitch.tv/RoslinGaming or my Discord server, both of which you can find links to in the video description below. Until next time, take care.